Is this audio actually working? I hope so. No, it's not working. We're living life in the Dolce Vita. Come on, telephone. As in, coming on the telephone. This is Dolce Vita by Ryan Paris. Me singing it in my best possible voice I can manage at this exact moment. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. I think I'll just put some lights on here first. We're living life in the Dolce Vita. Oh, come on, telephone. Anyway, after I've just been doing some singing, I'm just going to talk about this magazine that I picked up from Real Cinema, not Morecambe, but one in Ilkeston, here in Derbyshire. So we'll be looking at future film presentations to get excited about, because I know a lot of you out there are very excitable people, and well, September the 5th is on the back, coming soon, starring Peter Sarsgaard, who's always good, John Vanguard, Ben Chaplin and Leonie Benesch, directed by, it's impossible to read, I don't know who directed that one. Black Bag, a new Soderbergh film, looks to be of interest, but that's a different topic, really, other than it being a new film, of course. So yeah, new films, but first of all, let's just really dive into this and enjoy some Ryan Paris. If anybody's watching at this point, I will say it's amazing that you've even found this video and are watching it live, but please feel free to say hello in the chat. Some people might watch it from Twitch and then be like, they'll be responding like, what? Or similar, responses. So let's just get into it now, shall we? This time we got it right. We'll live like in the Dolce Vita. Got a dream tonight. We're dancing like in the Dolce Vita. We'll let some music on. Our love is made in the Dolce Vita. Nobody
else than you. It's all this night together we love again. I'd like to go through the darkness and you never bring down. Say you never love me down. We lay it down, Dolce Vita. We laid it down, Dolce Vita. While the years away, we lived like in Dolce Vita. I gave up yesterday. I'm so alone in Dolce Vita. Oh baby, telephone. Magic's gonna be Dolce Vita. Nobody else than you.
That one's for Davrin Dukic, one of the, shall we say, loves of my life. Alongside Mandela Man, that is. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed that, and that was Dolce Vita by Ryan Paris from 1983. An absolute stone cold classic. This is Twin Peaks Coffee Time today on the 6th of March 2025, you could call it even. Anyway, what have we got today? Real cinema on screen. This is actually from January, February, so it's perhaps a little bit outdated, but never mind. I'll just have a look at it for you so that you don't have to go and get this magazine from Real Cinema. New year, new movies, and there's many cinema treats to enjoy. Go on, take a bite. It mentions Gal Gadot as the Evil Queen and Rachel Zegler in Snow White. Then We Live in Time chronicles a lifetime of romance between Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield. Things get steamier as Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson engage in an unforgettable fling in Baby Girl. Cinema's most beloved singleton, I'm not sure about that, but is back to make this year's Valentine's extra special too, as Renée Zellweger returns in Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy, which right now I'm absolutely not that bothered about, but I know it has been very successful in the UK at least. I don't know about anywhere else. There's incredible true stories as Timothée Chalamet transforms for Bob Dylan biopic A Complete Unknown. Angelina Jolie stars in the life story of an opera icon in Maria, and two moments in TV history are immortalised in Saturday Night and September 5th. From real terror to on-screen scares, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu and Blumhouse's Wolfman resurrect two classic horror icons before Ryan Coogler unleashes his bold, terrifying new vision of fear. A vision of fear, I don't know what that is, but anyway, it's in Sinners. Of course, there's the main event for MCU, which means Marvel Cinematic Universe, as Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson, aka Captain America, enters a brave new world. What a start to the year. Hey ho, it's off to the cinema we go. Lee Curtis, editor of On Screen magazine. So that's a very mainstream look at the movies. Not particularly surprising considering that real cinemas are generally pretty much a mainstream endeavour, of course. And they have a very good cinema in Ilkeston and Morecambe as well, in fact, and other places. But Morecambe was the place where we saw Full Metal Jacket, and I know others, including Josh and his girlfriend, saw The Shining and other Kubrick films for the Morecambe Film Festival in 2023. That was end of 2023. That was a good, festival for sure, where I met a close personal friend, Rob Ager, and anyway, it's the Scala is one of the oldest cinemas in the UK, one of the two. It's got one screen, but it is very much, a I don't know if it's a listed building, but it should be. I mean, it's been actually refurbished more since, I've been to see, for instance, in about 2005, I saw Land of the Dead there, the George A. Romero continuation of his zombie series of films. After, of course, Day of the Dead, then came Land of the Dead, then came Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, and possibly another, I'm not sure. But, Land of the Dead was quite a 90 minutes or so Romero, making a very studio friendly kind of horror film with zombies. I mean, it wasn't really, I wouldn't say it was particularly similar to, for instance, Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead, or obviously going back to the Night of the Living Dead, but it sort of had its own qualities, and I wouldn't disparage them particularly. I mean, it had its strengths. It felt a bit like a film which, I mentioned the studio, I don't know which studio exactly, but it felt like they'd asked Romero to cut it down to 90 minutes, which seemed a bit of the short length, a bit of a short length. I mean, similarly to Day of the Dead, which was shorter but not quite as short, and particularly when you compare it to Dawn of the Dead, which was so over 2 hours at least in its full Cannes or director's cut, Cannes Film Festival. Then there was the Argento cut, which was shorter, but then had actually more gore in certain scenes and a different Goblin soundtrack, etc. But, with Romero, he had a lot of frenetic kind of cutting and energy in his films, even if they might have been quite long, at one point. A lot of this sort of movement from one side of the frame to the other, and that sort of you could say a slightly comic book edge to the way he filmed things, but at the same time it had a documentary feel, especially in something like Dawn of the Dead, but and Night of the Living Dead. And I suppose Day of the Dead was a little bit more of a studio production, but it's sort of pretty downbeat for a studio film, and I think it did okay, but it certainly didn't, get the same kind of attention as Dawn of the Dead did, or the same kind of audiences, because I think mainly because it was just too much of a compromise between Romero and a studio, and then Land of the Dead was somewhat similar, I suppose, but maybe a little bit more its own thing, between being something kind of modest, fairly well budgeted, I would imagine. Quite definitely, medium to almost high budgeted in some sequences, but it's not as big as, say, Dawn of the Dead, even though that's lower budgeted. But also in terms of other films that I saw at the Scala in Ilkeston when I actually was based there, I lived in 2 different places in Ilkeston. No, 3 different places actually, or 4. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter where I lived exactly, but the cinema, was always there, and I saw Halloween, the Rob Zombie Halloween, um, Rocky Balboa, Brokeback Mountain. I don't think I actually stayed for the entirety of Brokeback Mountain, not because I was, you know, not because I particularly found it um, to be, any one particular thing or the subject matter bothered me in the slightest. It's a well-made film, but I think it was back in my days of um, still drinking alcohol somewhat, and if you've had a drink and stuff like that, it can make your attention be less good, and that was the case then. But I also saw Superman v Batman, Dawn of Justice on the big screen in 3D, funnily enough, and fairly enjoyed it, to be honest. In a cinema which has obviously not got a massive screen, but it was decent enough in 3D. Same for Avengers Assemble. Um, what else did I see there? Alice in Wonderland. The film with Maya Wasikowska, and however you say her name, and Johnny Depp, of course, from Tim Burton. Probably a few other films that I can't remember at this juncture, but yeah, it's. I didn't go there loads as much as I probably could have done or should have done in some ways, because we're going back to the days when Blockbuster still existed, and I actually used to either watch even videos, sometimes films on video that I got from a nearby video shop, which was selling all of its whole videotapes really cheap, and I can remember getting Close Encounters of the Third Kind, whichever cut, and just watching it on an old TV, on video, and really enjoying it. Because, I was obviously familiar with the film, but, I remember also watching Late Night Shopping, which is a UK sort of comedy drama about 20 somethings or 30 somethings sort of hanging around in cafes and things like this, and has some good 80s music in it that they can't get out of the tape player, so they have to listen to Dreams by or not Dreams, Dreams by anyway, that song 80s from the 80s called Dreams. In dreams when I close my eyes, every second of the night I did it. That song. And Dreams by a band that I know Josh is a massive fan of. This band. Not Fleetwood Mac or other bands. The Cranberries, or even Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics. Heart These Dreams, of course. Classic karaoke song as used in that film. And in the film they have a car with a tape player in it, where they can't get the tape out of the tape player, so the joke is they have to listen to these songs that they think are not cool, but it would seem that they actually like the songs. So returning to this magazine from Real, I will mention any other films that seem interesting, because there are ones in here which are yet to come out. Sinners, 7th of March. Marching Powder with Danny Dyer looks absolutely amazing. Well, I mean, maybe it's okay, but I don't know. It kind of looks pretty ridiculous. Disney's Snow White is due out on the 20th of March. Try 21st here. Wicked Games. Anyway, it's a bit of a seems to be a bit of a possibility of a combination of a reference to Chris Isaak's song Wicked Game and the fact that Wicked was such a box office sensation. But that is for Baby Girl, which has already come out in January, starring Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson and Antonio Banderas. We Live in Time. I don't know anybody who's seen that. I've not heard anything about it. Probably an okay film. Who knows? The Minecraft movie is coming out in April, which is, you probably can tell I would be immensely excited about this. I'm probably the first in the queue for this. Thunderbolts is coming out in May, also starring Florence Pugh, David Harbour, of known from Stranger Things, of course, but other films as well. Mickey 17 is out in April, starring Robert Pattinson, Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette. Might be an okay film, I don't know. The Amateur looks interesting with Rami Malek, Lawrence Fishburne, and Rachel Brosnahan. Sorry if I've got that name wrong. A Minecraft movie is coming out, fantastic film no doubt, from Jared Hess. Novocaine is coming out, starring Jack Quaid, Amber, I can't read it, Midhunder or something, Jacob Batalon, The Penguin Lessons, and Until Dawn. The Penguin Lessons stars Steve Coogan, Jonathan Pryce in a poignant dramedy from the director of The Full Monty that follows a British teacher's personal and political awakening after adopting a penguin in 1976 Argentina. Fantastic. Can win Captain America Brave New World Brave New World prizes. I don't know where the fantasies comes in there, but if anybody is actually watching now, can you please leave a message in the chat if you are able to do so. It's always good to hear from anybody, really, even if you just want to throw in salts or anything really. This is also Thunderbolts coming out in, I suppose this is probably about Marvel characters again, May 2025. Careful who you assemble. Okay. Well, I mean, the cast in terms of Florence Pugh and David Harbour are at least decent. I mean, whether the film will be good is a different matter, of course. She plays Black Widow's sister, and he's their dad, I presume. I mean, the Black Widow film was not immensely successful, but it did fine, I imagine. But, I mean, they've obviously not got Scarlett Johansson in this one playing Black Widow. Her sister's in it playing, I don't know what other character she's playing, but if you know, please write in on the chat to tell me. But, I don't have a massive interest in Marvel films, or DC films for that matter. I mean, but at the same time, I don't, it's not like I have a dislike of them, and I would go and see a superhero movie, just for, a laugh, basically. But yeah, anyway, that's just it. I'm going to leave this video as a short one because of the karaoke nature of the starting, etc. And I don't have any other pressing topics to go into right now. I mean, Carl McLachlan was there at the Oscars, and there are various photos of that. There's various things coming from a Miller guy, I can't remember, Steve Miller, or anyway, not Steve Miller, he's a singer, or was. And yeah, there's various things coming from the Twin Peaks Days, event in the real Twin Peaks. Ray Wise, singing or doing a Q&A, etc. So all of that is out there if you want to find it. But I haven't got any kind of major news going on at the moment. So I did notice that Cameron put a video up for the Black Rose fan film that he plans on making. So there's that on his Obnoxious and Anonymous channel. But he also did a video about Cooper being sort of like a time travelling FBI agent who is trying to change the past in terms of what happened to Laura, inevitably. And then it's sort of like he's looping in time where there's something preventing that from being the case. You can't go back and change the past, because then you also change the future and everything goes out of sync with each other. And sort of then there's an image, or at least there's especially a very sound suggestion that sort of, and imagery that suggests that kind of, especially the stuff to do with the more negative forces within the world of Twin Peaks and the experiment, the Jowday mention, and then everything linked perhaps to the bomb explosion, in the desert, and the birth of, certainly not the birth of Bob, but it's like as if Bob and the Black Lodge beings, supernatural beings, or whatever you want to call them, came in, through a crevice in time, to use a sort of a description in the second season. And the idea with that all is that Mr. C is sort of trying to manipulate events in his own way, which seems to not really go anywhere, particularly in terms of, it's like it kind of peters out of it, because he's almost maybe a bit high on his own supply, or not got enough cream corn, who knows. But like the whole thing with Cooper going back in time and everything almost seems to happen too late, and then the whole of nature of the return is basically centered around Dougie far more than Mr. C, perhaps, even though Mr. C is in it a fair amount. But the whole thing with the reverting to starting position, for instance, seems to hint at this. It's like a record that just goes and then goes back to the start and doesn't play the whole song, in a way. So we end up with the ending of the return, and that sort of suggested a bit to me in the noise of the this, which is a bit like an insect, but it's also like a record scratching a bit. And we do get a shot of a old gramophone at the start of, and it's like that noise comes from within the speaker of that, so it is suggested that it's all related, in a sense. But the Dale Cooper's new groove, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of the return at the end, is sort of, it feels, like I said at the time and afterwards, it felt like there would be a new show of Twin Peaks 2 years later or something. I felt like that. Or, it seemed rational enough, I wasn't just pie in the sky about it, cherry pie or whatever. But, cherry pie in the sky could be a good article about where Twin Peaks could have gone, and if it was focusing on the whole Carrie Page, turning that page, and going into something to do with Cooper Richard and his involvement with Carrie Page. It could have really gone any number of ways, where it could be an FBI investigation, more of a return back to what we think of Cooper, doing, in different ways. But we did get some of that in the last episode. But even though Cooper didn't seem fully himself as such. But yeah, the whole thing with all of the extra scripts that Lynch wrote called Unrecorded Night, Wisteria. There's 13 scripts that he wrote, so I could only presume that those are based around the ideas that he had after Twin Peaks: The Return, 2017, the limited event series. And I don't think, from what has been said, that executives at whichever network were going ahead with something he wanted to do. And it was, happening. I don't think we're talking Netflix now, but there's been things reported after Lynch's passing and everything. Only briefly, and mainly they've been overlooked really because there's so much other stuff coming from, Isabella Rossellini's at the Oscars in a blue velvet gown, and Carl McLachlan doing speeches and things like this. But they were working on something with Lynch, and it was supposed to be quite a unusual project. But then, which thing that Lynch ever did has not been described as unusual. Perhaps even The Straight Story was unusual for Lynch, So it could really have gone any different number of ways, and it may have had conventional elements in it. It may have been a mix of different things, of things which are more abstract, or like part 8 of The Return, for instance. Who knows? But I think people will see something of all of that in some way, shape or form. It's more like a question of who could kind of do that. I don't think anyone's going to say, I will replace Lynch and just direct his script necessarily. So certainly not in the next couple of weeks. But I think for many people connected to Lynch and everything, and who worked with him, etc., who, never mind, his family, they're obviously still going through all of the different feelings. As Mark Frost said, now I'm only just his feelings, and for the time being, and he wrote that as his immediate reaction. So I think, there'll always be things out there. Whether something comes of them is a question in itself, and I think it's a question that will have some positives. I think things will happen because Lynch has, a lot of his family are working in the creative world rather than saying industry. His sons are not really fully going, charging into making TV shows and stuff, like directing them, like Jennifer Lynch or Major Amy is now. So, but who knows what they'll do in the future. And then there's many other people who worked with Lynch. I've just seen a new interview with Crispin Glover, and he talks about, missing Lynch and how there was various things even planned that he wanted to work with him on, other projects that they never managed to do. And also how Lynch thought he was actually the executive producer of the film that Crispin Glover made with all Down syndrome actors and actresses in it, alongside himself, which was called Everything is Fine or something, or What Is It, something like that. But they're very difficult to see. You can't really buy them or see them online. They're just films which he made using, for instance, with the first one, he made using his payment from, his wage or salary from Charlie's Angels. So, and they're pretty, hardly a mainstream endeavour, but they certainly look visually very interesting, and in many other different ways, I'm sure. But yeah, Crispin Glover's someone who's always managed to still be an actor, but then do his own thing as well. And he's also made a third part of that feature film endeavour of his. There's already two parts, and then he only shows them like in special screenings, touring and everything. So anyway, I'll leave it there, and let's just try and be positive and look to the future. And I hope everyone out there is doing fine. All the best to you, and see you in the trees. Cheerio from now. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.